Joining me now to talk about it, David Horowitz, author of the 3-volume work, The Black Book of the American Left. David Horowitz, welcome back to America's Forum as you Skype in this morning from California. It's good to have you back.
Thank you, JD.
These headlines we get from the Washington Press. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Democrats are always on the attack and Republicans are always on defense. Obama was the only world leader of any significance absent from the march against terrorism in Paris because he's too busy conducting a war on our borders, which will let the terrorists in, and conducting a war on the oil and gas industry, which is our chief weapon against the terrorists, the low gas prices. He wants to increase their burdens by cutting methane gas emissions by 45% within a very short time period. That's what Obama's focus is. His focus is on weakening America. But where's the Republicans drawing attention to this? Why aren't the Republicans, talking about the Democrats' war on our borders? This is not about, it's about immigration, but immigration is such a big word and it just has no blood in it, no color. This is a war on our borders. We're the only country in the world that doesn't secure its borders. I mean, Mexico has very tight borders. Why aren't we on the offensive? If you're not playing offense, you're on defense, and if you're on defense, you're going to be losing. Nancy Pelosi has just appointed a Muslim who is sponsored by the Muslim Brotherhood to the Intelligence Committee, for crying out tears.
You are speaking of Congressman Andre Carson of Indiana, and that point is well taken. You talk about the assertiveness, the aggressiveness of the left. Perhaps one reason, and maybe it has ever been thus in Washington, is the fact that the press corps is so willing to go with the left's definition of terms. For example, Talking Points memo, that TPM website, has this headline: why the GOP threat to shut down DHS over immigration may backfire. I agree with you about... Go ahead, David.
The Department of Homeland Security, for crying out tears, the left. They don't want us to have security. But if you don't say that and you don't attack them for supporting our enemies, I mean, the left has supported every enemy that America has had since the Second World War. But you don't hear our side, and that means people who have a platform, saying that. I use the phrase fight fire with fire. You have to fight fire with fire or you're going to lose.
Let's see if we can fashion the message. We'll try to give some help to the folks on the Hill, since in a different context, you and I used to talk about this quite a bit privately. Wouldn't the most dynamic tool to use rhetorically against President Obama be to say this: our president is willing to shut down Homeland Security on behalf of millions of illegals in the country? He actually places the value of illegals over that of the security of American citizens. 20 seconds to react, David.
Yeah, but I would that's too long, the illegals part.
Well, I tell you what, we'll work on shortening it up.
Shut down Homeland Security while he conducts a war on our borders, which will make it easier for terrorists to get here. That's the way I would do it.
Sounds good to me.
Train the country.
Sounds good to me. And apparently there are members of the animal kingdom there within microphone hearing that agree with what we have to say. We'll take care of controlling the canine noise and come back with legitimate thoughts of David Horowitz as we continue here on America's Forum. Let's continue our conversation with our friend David Horowitz, who now most definitely is a denizen of the right. We're going to go from message to those delivering the message, David, as we take a look at the field of possible presidential candidates for 2016. The return of Romney, is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, I think why not? It's a good thing. I think Rand Paul is really stretching it when he says Romney will run to the left of Jeb.
But
I'm not sure that's the case. They're really pretty similar politicians, and I'm hoping the party will nominate a tougher, more conservative leader than either of them.
well, I think Rand Paul is hoping that the party will nominate Rand Paul. He's probably going to end up in this thing as well. And let's talk some about that Paulian influence on national politics. First, Dr. Ron Paul, with whom I served in the Congress, now Senator Rand Paul. Do you believe a fusion of libertarian principles and ideals with the conservatism of the Republican Party? Will that kind of combination work for Senator Paul should he decide to get in the race?
I think it's the wrong season. I mean, Ron, his father, is a loon. I mean, he and I know I will antagonize all the Paulites by saying that, but he's crazy. He's a crackpot. Rand Paul is a serious person, but I think he's going to have a problem with his libertarian positions. He'll have a foreign policy problem. Look, the issue that will win for Republicans in the next election is national security. I wrote about this in a book called, which I published just this last year, called Take No Prisoners. Republicans have never won the popular vote nationally, never since 1945, where national security has not been the number one issue. The counterexample that comes to mind immediately is the 2000 election, which Bush won, but he lost, and national security was not an issue, but he lost the popular vote. The fact is, the way the Republican Party is still constituted, the only thing that Americans, can be counted on to trust them on is national security. They understand that the Democrats are treacherous.
And with the 2 minutes remaining, let's bring up someone who has tried to capitalize on that from a more conservative place on the spectrum. That would be Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who accused Governor Romney and others of running to the, quote, mushy middle on important issues. What do you think about the possible candidacy of a Senator Ted Cruz for president?
I'm a great admirer of Ted Cruz, but I wish he would attack the Democrats and not other Republicans. I mean, you recall from the primaries for the 2012 election, we had people, Newt Gingrich and Rick Perry were attacking Romney as a corporate vulture. I mean, this is terrible. I'm a big fan of Ronald Reagan's no enemies, or keep them as few as possible to the right. They should distinguish themselves by their attacks on the Democrats' betrayal of this country.
And mindful of that, the 11th Amendment, the 11th Commandment, Ronald Reagan called it, David Horowitz. In the 30 seconds that remain, in the final analysis, do you believe it'll be a governor who emerges in 2016 because governors have executive experience?
Yeah, and they also have a good funding base, being governors. I think the governors are formidable. I'm thinking Scott Walker came in, I think, third in the Iowa poll. And Walker he's a conservative who speaks softly, but is capable of wielding a big stick, as we saw in Wisconsin. And I think in presidential politics, that's what's going to win.
And certainly a number of other governors out there. It looks like we may see former Texas Governor Rick Perry, maybe Governor John Kasich of Ohio. Tell you what, David, we'll bring you back to talk more about this in the days ahead. Time is getting away from us right now. David Horowitz, author of the 3-volume work, The Black Book of the American Left. We appreciate your time, and we'll have you back. Stay with us. More to come here on America's Forum.